I never thought a simple HOA dispute would turn into a full-blown nightmare. Until Karen showed up at my door. It started like any normal day. I was enjoying my morning coffee, scrolling through emails, and trying to ignore the usual HOA notices that had been piling up over the past few months. But that morning, there was something different. A crisp envelope lay on my welcome mat, addressed in bold letters from the HOA. I tore it open and read the contents. Karen, the notorious HOA board member, claimed I was in violation of some obscure rule and threatened to take action if I didn't comply immediately. At first, I thought it was a harmless overreach. But then, a sharp knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. There she was, Karen, clipboard in hand, eyes blazing with authority, ready to lecture me as if she owned the neighborhood. She started listing violations I supposedly committed, waving the HOA rulebook around like a sword. Her tone was aggressive, bordering on insulting, and it became clear quickly that she wasn't there for a conversation. She wanted to intimidate. My neighbors peered through their windows, whispering among themselves as Karen rattled off her list of demands. Every word she said made me more determined not to back down. Little did she know, this was about to backfire spectacularly. She thought she could boss me around and take what's mine, but she had no idea who she was messing with. Karen didn't just want compliance. She wanted control. She began claiming ownership over certain parts of my property, insisting that I had to remove personal items or face fines that would supposedly escalate. Every demand she made was increasingly absurd. How could someone think they had the power to dictate what I did on my own property? Karen leaned in, speaking louder, trying to assert dominance, pointing at her clipboard as if it granted her invincibility. She cited HOA rules that were outdated or misinterpreted, clearly hoping that fear would pressure me into submission. I listened patiently, letting her spew her nonsense. Well, inside, I was already planning my response. My neighbors were beginning to gather, curious about the commotion. Some knew Karen's reputation. Others were seeing it unfold for the first time. I realized that every word she spoke was another piece of evidence of her overreach. She had no clue she was about to cross the line, and that line was going to be very clear soon. One look at me, and Karen realized she had underestimated me completely. I decided it was time to show her exactly who she was dealing with. Calmly, I explained my position, outlining my rights as a property owner. Then, with a level of authority she clearly hadn't anticipated, I mentioned my professional background and the connections I had that gave me the ability to escalate situations like this quickly. The effect was immediate. Her eyes widened in shock, and her aggressive stance faltered. For a moment, there was silence, awkward, heavy, and loaded with the realization that she had miscalculated entirely. Karen's demeanor shifted from confidence to panic as she realized that her attempts to intimidate me were not only futile, but also potentially damaging to her own reputation. She had assumed that because she held a title within the HOA, she had absolute power. But power without knowledge is nothing. That moment of revelation changed the entire dynamic instantly. She tried to regain control, but the damage was already done. The power was no longer in her hands, it was mine. What started as a petty HOA dispute quickly spiraled out of control. Karen's attempts to assert authority only drew more attention. My neighbors, curious and supportive, began documenting her actions. Security cameras captured every moment her shouting, gesturing wildly, and trying to claim things that were clearly my property. I called the HOA office and calmly reported her behavior, citing specific rules she had violated. Within hours, it became evident that Karen had overstepped her bounds in multiple ways, leaving the HOA board with little choice but to intervene. The escalation didn't stop there. Discussions with local authorities and HOA representatives revealed that her actions were borderline harassment. She had assumed that her position gave her unchecked control, but in reality, it made her accountable for every aggressive move. This was not just a lesson for Karen, it was a warning for anyone who believes they can wield authority without understanding limits. The drama unfolded in full view of everyone, leaving an unforgettable mark on our community and on Karen herself. If you ever think someone can mess with your property, this is exactly how you handle it. Dealing with a Karen, especially one who assumes unchecked power, is about staying calm, knowing your rights, and documenting everything. Patience and preparation are your best tools. Never react in anger, because that only gives them leverage. Instead, respond strategically, make your position clear, and involve the proper authorities when needed. My experience also taught me that confidence and knowledge are key. When Karen realized she had underestimated me, her whole approach collapsed. It's a reminder that anyone who tries to manipulate or intimidate you can be stopped with the right approach. Most importantly, it's a story for the community. Standing up for yourself isn't just about winning, it's about ensuring respect and fairness. Karen's actions may have been loud and aggressive, but in the end, reason, preparation, and clarity always win. And that's exactly what happened that day. Her overreach turned into a lesson she and everyone watching would never forget.